Hey guys, this is Tim Denis's last show before he retires after 49 years of radio. You need to check this out. You don't want to miss it. Hello everyone, this is Phil Golfi with REMAX The Golfi Team. Welcome to the Golfi Real Estate Show, Niagara edition with host Tim Denis.
Hello, Phil. And as normal, there's a Golfi on the other end of the microphone, but this one would be Phil this week. And we got a lot to go through this week because I know your dad is away. He says he's at a conference, Phil.
Yeah.
Are we believing that, or is he just away?
Yeah, we'll call it away on assignment. I don't know what he's up to, but I did talk to him this morning. We had a brief call before the show, and he likes to make sure I'm in line on time and ready to go. And I'll tell you right now, there's this thing that I call Vegas voice, and it's a voice that you usually have after a short little trip to Vegas.
Yep. I know it well.
He had that type of voice this morning, so he got up to something, whether it was a late dinner or last night, but he you can tell he wasn't he wouldn't have been ready and to hop on the show with you, unfortunately. So I'll take over from here. But yeah, he's on assignment, so he's down in New York City. He's he likes to meet with the top agents from around North America, the top marketing companies from around North America. And that's where we, get ideas like this in terms of, developing and creating our own radio show to better connect with our audience. And so he's down there doing that and seeing, different ways that we continue to grow our brand and do those types of things. So he's enjoying himself nonetheless.
Okay, well, we'll go with that. But and when he gets back, we'll get him to tell the true story of what was going on. But I am interested when he goes to conferences in the States, and you've been there before. What's the big difference, or is there? Is the real estate business the same in the States as it is here? What are the major differences, Phil?
Yeah, it is. A lot of the stuff is the same, very, very similar. But I just think they're, in terms of the style and in terms of the business, in terms of developing and growing a team, they're just a little bit more advanced. And I think they're just a little bit more, organizationally structured better. And in terms of, supporting their support staff and supporting their agents and a lot of the technology that helps you run and streamline a real estate team are developed for those teams, right? And that's where, it's a bigger market. There's a lot more opportunity for tech in the US. And so a lot of times is we'll learn about what other teams are doing and then trying to apply it into our team and into our market. And as a result, it better helps serve us, serve our clients and grow our team bigger to provide a better real estate experience. So that's ultimately the goal when we go down there is keep up with the latest and newest trends and how we can apply it to our business. And like I said, it's providing that great experience and making sure that we're on top of our stuff and making sure that we're, like I said, we're helping our buyers and our sellers out the best we can.
A little closer. I mean, my sister had a place that she just a summer cottage place. It was in the States along Lake Ontario, down along the Lake Ontario shoreline in the States. And I know she had to sell it. And we got into a discussion one day about the number of Canadians that buy real estate down there and the number of Americans who buy real estate up here. Do you deal with that a lot at your place? Do you get calls from the U.S. saying, I want a Lake Erie shoreline cottage. What can you do for me?
Yeah, not as often as you would think. There's a ton of Canadians that are buying, property in the U.S. right now. I mean, we all look back to, when that dollar was even par and that would have been around 2007, 2008, 2009. Yeah. And I remember just talking to people, and obviously I was a young kid at the time. And I said, well, what's the significance of this? And, because we've always been behind the U.S. dollar. And now you look at it today and you're like, holy smokes. Like those people in terms of just trading dollar for dollar would have made 40% on their investment and then on top of the appreciation value. So I think if our dollar continues to trend the way it's been trending, I think we're going to see a lot more Americans coming up here and buying property. And why not, right? If their dollar's so strong and would go so far in our economy, in comparison to us going down there. So I don't see it that often. But I think it's a trend that we might start to see. I know when you get down into, the Crystal Beach area, the Fort Erie area, there's a ton of Americans that come up there. Yep. And I remember, there's a golf club, Cherry Hill, and their membership, I would say, is probably 50% Americans. And during the pandemic, when the Americans couldn't come up, their course was basically empty and no one was playing it. So they opened it up to let a bunch more Canadians in. But in those little areas, for sure, there's tons and tons of Americans coming up and buying those cottages. And I would not be surprised if that trend continues to rise just with where the dollar's at. And why wouldn't you, Tim? I mean, if our dollar was the American dollar, we would be all going to Florida and, going across the border and trying to find recreational properties. And I think they're going to do the same here. So it's like I said, if our dollar continues to trend like the way it is, we will see a lot more Americans coming up to visit us.
Is there a lot of red tape? I mean, have you ever done it? Have you had a client deal cross border? Is there a lot of red tape when you're not a citizen of that country in order to own property?
Yeah, I think so. From my understanding, it's really hard to get a mortgage in the U.S. So what a lot of people would do is they would either refinance their principal property in Canada and then take the money down there and go buy it for cash. And that's a lot, one of the big one in terms of the biggest red tape is obviously financing and money. But, we've seen the baby boom population. If they have $1 million, in equity in their property, a lot of them will pull out, $1 million or $500,000 and go down there and buy a recreational property. It's gotten a lot easier to own these properties just with the platforms such as Vrbo and Airbnb, where you have this beautiful recreational property that you can use whenever you want. And then when you're not using it, you can, now you're generating an income. So it doesn't cost you as much as it would before. And you can, hire a property manager and do it that way. But then you get the leisure of having a place to go and having your own property, whether it's in the States or wherever. And it's not just been Florida, Tim. Like we've seen Mexico and Tulum pop up as a little hotspot and destination for recreational property. And then we've seen even some of the islands where people will take off to, St. Lucia or Barbados or some of those warmer parts. Obviously, it's, not as close as a 2.5 hour flight to Florida, but we've seen a lot more people start to pop up and look elsewhere for, certain vacation properties. And it just depends what you're looking for. But yeah, there's a lot of options out there. And it seems like, we always talk, we're going to experience one of the largest transfers of wealth that we have ever seen, in terms of, the baby boomers inheriting money and it's, there's a lot of like, what are they going to do with it? And a lot of it is recreational properties. A lot of it's, buying RVs, buying boats. It's about living that lifestyle that they've wanted to live. And so we're going to see an uptick, and we've seen an uptick in people wanting cottages and people wanting boats and people looking for RVs. And that's just due to the, the largest money of transfer of wealth that this economy will ever see.
I wanted to talk about recreational properties a little bit more a little later on in the show from another aspect of it. We'll get to that in a minute. But I know you also had a pretty busy week because you were handing out awards because Club Roma was just full of golfi people right this week.
Yeah, we went in there and lit the place on fire. So every year we have we call it the Golfies, and it's an award ceremony where we recognize the achievements of all our agents and all our staff, and it's a great night, and it's a great award ceremony, and it's so well put together by our event planners. And it's everyone gets dolled up and dressed up in their suits, tuxedos, and ball gowns, and everyone looks great, and we all get together for a night of fun and award ceremony. So it's we started this. This is one of a COVID project that we knew we needed. We knew we wanted it. and during the pandemic, it was something that we were able to kind of put our minds together and develop. And since then, it's been a night that everyone looks forward to when it's coming around. And it's amazing to be able to recognize people who work so hard and do so much for this company and this business. And you want to surround yourself. Every organization does, is surrounding yourself with amazing people. You pay them well, and you offer them the most. You offer them the most so they can do their job the best they can, and then you get together on a night and celebrate all the accomplishments. So super excited, super proud, and was a lot of fun.
I know there was a time not long ago when people who were looking for a change in career or the first career, and they saw the price of real estate going up, and there were people getting immense amounts of money for houses, and everybody thought, I could get into the real estate. I could be a real estate broker, and people studied for that. Now, you were just handing out awards to the people that work with you. Is it still a business that is enticing people right now? Are you looking for people? What advice do you have for people who are kind of looking at that and saying, I could do that?
A lot of people. So I feel like that it's real estate is always that, right? There's so many times I'll walk into a home and I'll meet someone, and then, they'll say, oh, I've always loved real estate. I feel like I would be good at it. And, I just never kind of took the plunge to get into it. And then there's other people who I meet, and they'll say, hey, I had my real estate license for 6 months, and I struggled, and I found it really difficult, and, it wasn't for me. So you're so right. It's a polarizing career. It's a polarizing job, especially when you add in, the new Netflix series of buying Beverly Hills and selling Sunset, and, you watch it and you're like, I want to get involved in this. And it's, it's sexy and it's fun and it's, lavish. And so it's definitely attractive, right? It's an attractive career, especially when somebody's at the crossroads of what they're doing in their life. And the barrier to entry in real estate is not that great, right? It's for lack of better terms, it's, 6 tests and you got your real estate license. So, but yeah, you're right. Like Tim, it's so polarizing. It's a lot of people, got into it during the pandemic and got their license. And then we had a mass exodus, I would say, in the last, 18 months, where a lot of people left it. So there continues to be that trend, and that swinging trend where when the market's really hot, as we saw it in 2022, a lot of people wanted to get into it. And a lot of people, looked at it as a career that they could do and want to do. And then all of a sudden, the last 16 to 18 months, it hasn't been great. And we've seen the lowest unit sales, we've ever seen. So the pie got smaller and the agent count got bigger. So it just felt like there wasn't enough business out there for everyone, I guess. But yeah, we saw that that mass exodus of agents leaving the industry, and I think it's it's going to continue to trend that way, where people come and go, just like every industry.
Well, it's funny because when you talked about being at a party and somebody says, "Oh, you're in real estate. I could do real estate. I could." That happens to me all the time in this business. It's right. People find out you're in radio. So, well, I could talk for a living. Just give me a show, and I could. And then when they get it, it's like, oh, this actually requires a little bit more work than I thought. It's not. It's not a snap job. They're not going to come to you, right? You have to work at it, and the good ones are the ones who really work at it in your business, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are misunderstood of the career, and I'll say this, you're on your own a lot. It could be a lonely job, and a lot of the times you're just sitting at your desk and trying to generate business and prospect different buyers and different sellers. And it's not, like I always say, it's not what you see on the TV shows. It's a lot different. There's a lot more downtime. There's a lot more, in the end, it's trying to get people to work with you and offering them a service that is attractive to them, to help them, make an important life decision. And then, on top of that, you bring in the stress and the emotions of helping people make these decisions. So it's like I said, sometimes I believe it's a misunderstood career until you get into it. And it takes a lot of guts. So it's fun. I mean, I grew up in it. This is all I've ever known. So I don't really know anything else. You know, I like I said, I grew up in it. I worked in mortgages for a short little stint, and then I hopped right into commission real estate sales. So it's you know, I was never the one who started in corporate and had a sales job or worked in corporate that way, but it's been kind of my livelihood for as long as I've ever known.
Phil Golfi is with me as we head into the second segment of the Golfi Real Estate Show in a moment or two. There have been a lot of things in the news when it comes to real estate. We're going to talk about taxes, vacant unit taxes, those kinds of things, capital gains taxes. When we come back, for those of you in this business, hang around. For those of you who are not, listen, because we learn something every week. Coming right back on the Golfi Real Estate Show. It's the Golfi Real Estate Show. I'm Tim Denis, but he is Phil Golfi this morning and this afternoon, wherever you happen to be, from REMAX, the Golfi Team. And we're talking all things real estate. Now, of course, the last couple of weeks, you can't talk about real estate without people talking about taxes. I want to talk about one form of tax that has to do with real estate, and it's the vacant unit tax. And this has changed a little bit as the government's work to try and build more homes and get roofs over people's heads. They've decided to impose vacant unit taxes. And it almost seems, Phil, that the landlords are to blame. A lot of people are blaming landlords here, but some people may say that it's not landlords, it's government policy. Now, what do you take from all of this?
It's easiest to blame the landlords, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
it's all their fault. It's always all their fault. It's always, let's villainize the landlord because they don't do anything right. So yeah, we're seeing the vacant home tax come into effect. And when I look at this, it's the government, puts it in a way where it's like, oh, this is going to create affordable housing, and there's going to be a lot more opportunities for buyers. And this is going to, create, more inventory. And we've seen other cities and other municipalities kind of apply this. And what happens is it doesn't do any of that, but it's a massive revenue generator for that particular city. And the results have, in terms of following other municipalities, other cities, that's the only thing it's done. Now, a couple things. If somebody has enough money to have an empty house and not want to do anything with it, they're not going to, jump at a 1% increase in tax on the assessed value. Now, it's still thousands of dollars, but obviously there's a reason why they're keeping that vacant home, that home vacant, and they don't want to do anything with it. So I do think there will be some people who will not want to pay it and who will immediately, jump in and say, okay, well, now it's time to do something with this property, whether it's sell it or rent it out or, fix it up and do something with it. So I do think there's going to be a immediate effect on it, but long term, I think it's just going to turn into a massive revenue generator for that municipality. And I think it's on them. And a lot of them will say, we're going to use this money and put it into affordable, housing. And the amount of money that they're going to make is tens and tens of millions of dollars. So for this to be effective, it comes back to the council, to the mayor, to the municipality, and what they're going to do with this money. Because if they're going to piss it away and make bad decisions and do nothing with it, which unfortunately we've seen in the past in terms of some government projects, then it's not going to work. But if they're able to find properties and build affordable housing and create those opportunities for people, then it's a good thing. So that's my take on it. It's not going to affect the real estate market. It's not going to affect prices. It's not going to affect inventory. But I just think there are people out there right now who maybe they've inherited a property and they don't know what to do with it, and they don't want to rent it out because the landlord tenant board and the stage we're at with that. And so they're just saying, what, I'm going to make, I want to wait until the prices appreciate a little more. I want to wait until the interest rates come down, and then maybe I'll think about selling it. But for now, they enjoy taking care of it. They enjoy cutting the lawn. Maybe it was their parents' place, or, who knows, but and then on the flip side, there's always those kind of derelict, decapitated properties that we've seen that have been vacant for 5-10 years. We don't see that many of those, right? Those are very, very rare in our market. Most oftentimes a vacant home is as a result of an, inheritance or a marital breakup or something along those lines. And very rarely does a property sit vacant for that long. Maybe the buyers went and bought something and they couldn't sell their property, so they're waiting for a better, seller market. So it's going to be interesting to see. I do think, Tim, one of the ripple effects this is going to happen is going to be on developers. And this is where I'm uneasy about it, because a lot of the times is developers will buy, 6 or 7, 8 neighboring properties in a row for a future development project, could be 5 to 10 years down the road. Now they're going to have to pay, this is going to increase their taxes substantially as they hold on to these properties and have to wait on, jumping through hoops and get approvals and get zoning changes to fulfill their development project. So that's one ripple effect I do see it having is it might, shy away from developers wanting to, develop certain properties. And we need developers, right? We need more housing. That's what the government wants. But if we're going to continue to make it harder for developers and to continue to, build houses, this is one negative ripple effect that I can see it having on the, on certain municipalities.
Who were they aiming this at directly, Phil? I mean, was it because there's a stereotype that, there are whole neighborhoods of people who they bought up these places and they're just letting them sit, waiting to flip them for bigger money, et cetera, et cetera. Who were they really aiming this tax at?
Yeah. So, I mean, in Vancouver and Toronto, especially, there was all this talk about, Chinese investors coming in and using it as a tax haven and, laundering money through the purchase of new construction condos, and they would leave them vacant. And I think, I think, in matching those two up, I think that's who it was aimed at. Is like, okay, well, if you're going to come here and buy condos in the 10s and 20s of units and just leave them vacant, well, and while we're in the middle of a housing crisis, well, you're going to pay taxes on it, and we're going to increase your taxes on it so we can build more affordable opportunities for people who are looking for housing. That's what I think. In my opinion, I think they can pitch it that way. But like I said, it's just a massive, massive revenue generator for these cities, like in the tens and tens of millions of dollars. I mean, in Hamilton right now, I think there's an estimated of 1,000 vacant homes. And if we call it an average of, let's say the assessed value is around $400,000 in terms of an assessed value in terms of what you pay your taxes on, that's going to be an additional, $4,500 a month per property and times that by 1,000. So it's a lot of money that these places are going to be generating revenue for. So it's going to be interesting to see how it affects and what happens that way. We got the vacant home tax. We got the new laws on Airbnb and short-term rentals. In my opinion, I think they just got to take a look at the root of this. What's the cause? Why are people wanting to do short-term rentals? Why are people wanting to leave their home vacant and not rent it out? And it's directly due to the result of the landlord-tenant board. So many people right now have so many issues with the landlord-tenant board. It takes forever to be able to evict a tenant who's not paying rent and who's not even interested in understanding the loopholes and the problems that a landlord could have. So we have these professional tenants out there that are completely taking care of the system, taking advantage of the system, and it's put landlords in a position to say, well, I don't want to enter into a lease agreement with a tenant. What if I get caught with a bad tenant and it's going to take me forever to get them out? I'm going to lose thousands of dollars. So I'd rather just leave the home vacant for now and I'll sell it when the market gets better. That's what people are saying, Tim. Yeah. Isn't that a problem? Like, why can't we just, bury down and go fix what the root problem is instead of applying these taxes and creating these bylaws on housing instead of going to the landlord tenant board and cleaning that up and fixing that? right? Like we have people right now, especially in this market with the interest rates the way they are, we're seeing people's mortgages renew, and we're seeing, tenants stay in properties that they're not even paying for. We have landlords sacrificing so much in terms of, some of them not even being able to pay for their own mortgage where they live. Some of them not being able to go on vacation and take trips and do, live a lifestyle just because they got a tenant that's taking complete advantage of them, and not paying rent. And, it's like I said, it's one of the root causes of what's going on right now. And I think if they cleaned up what's going on with the landlord tenant board, they would see a massive ripple effect, in terms of there would be more landlords, there would be more people that would want to get into real estate investing. But right now it's just, it's just not a good place to be as an investor.
All right. Now, speaking of taxes, we were just talking about a vacant tax. When governments put their budgets together, they have to find ways to pay for any new programs that they have. And the federal government just came through with their big budget in the last week. And then they talked about spending $60 billion more dollars than they had before. So somehow they got to find money for that. Somebody's got to pay for it. So what do politically? You go after the richest people because there aren't as many of them and there aren't as many voters, right? So they institute a new capital gains tax. But some Canadians are really angry about this. Phil, when it comes to your business, why are people angry about this increase in capital gains taxes?
Yeah, so they painted it in a way that, it only affects the top 0.01% of the richest, yep, in our country, but it doesn't. This is going to affect a lot of people when it comes to, one-off sales, right? And we Tim, when this came out, we took a ton of calls in terms of how is it going to affect me and what can I do to try and avoid it. So when it comes to real estate, this affects a lot of people in the one-off purchases. For example, if you're a baby boomer and you've got one or two properties and you've held on to them for 10, 15, 20 years, and now you're trying to sell them or you're getting ready to sell them because you're retired and you want to access this money. This affects you, right? This is going to be a difference of, depending on how much your property is worth and how much equity you have, but this can be a difference of $50,000 to $100,000 on your specific property. And, I work with a number of investors, right? They're 65 plus, 70 plus years old and have held on to real estate for a long time. And right now they're disposing them, 1 year after another, just to avoid the capital gains, right? And, if you sell two properties in a year, well, you're going to pay a lot more tax. Well, this affects that type of investor, and it's a massive, massive blow to their portfolio and their income when it's all said and done. In addition to that, we see the cottage properties, right? We saw the cottage market absolutely take off during the pandemic in 2022. And there, like I said, anything over and beyond the $250,000 mark, you're paying 66% of capital gains tax on that amount of money you've earned. So it doesn't affect, in terms of your everyday consumer, your everyday person. However, in those one-off purchases, it's a massive, massive blow to the amount of money that you're going to be taking home at the end of the day in comparison to before. So it's going to come out. People are going to, understand it. And then when they go down the road, when they go to sell a property, they're going to remember what this is all about. So
what's it doing for you? You say you're taking a lot of calls from people.
Yeah. So a lot. Yeah.
What does it mean?
Yeah. So a lot of people, so there's a June 25th date on it when it comes into effect. A lot of people are saying, could we put our house up for sale and sell it right away? And before that day. And I said, well, yeah, you can. It's going to be difficult to transact that, that quickly and close that quickly to avoid the taxes. So that's, that's one of the hardest parts, but a lot of people are just calling us to understand it and understand how it affects them. So it's, it's going to affect a lot of people when it comes to those one-off purchases of a recreational property or an investment property. And that's how it's going to, that's what we're going to see most in terms of realtors in our industry. And it's, it sucks. It really sucks. It feels like there's not that motivation anymore to want to go out and build wealth and invest and build toward a better future. Cause that's what these people did. Right. And I look at the real estate investor who's been investing for 20 years and they're sacrificing something to try and build wealth for a better future, whether it's their kids, whether it's retirement, whether it's a lifestyle. And now, they've done all this and they've built up this equity and they built up this wealth. And then the government, obviously has their hand in their back pocket and needs their share. So like I said, it's a massive, massive blow. It's disappointing and it's hard to see. It's hard to watch. And it's, there's a lot more people out there right now who are shying away from real estate investing than before.
While governments continue to try and find ways to put roofs over people's heads, one of the things they're doing, we'll tell you about out in BC and the effects that might have across the rest of the country when we come back with Phil Golfi on the Golfi Real Estate Show. All right, Golfi Real Estate Show back on at your house, in your car, wherever you happen to be listening. I'm Tim Denis. He's Phil Golfi. And each week we talk about what's going on in the industry, what's going on across Canada, Ontario, Niagara. And actually, Phil, this is the last time I get a chance to do this show, because after all of these years of doing this show with your dad and the numerous times I've done it with you, I'm retiring next week. So this is the last time I get to do this with you guys.
Crazy, Tim. You're going to be missed dearly. Your voice has, echoed across the sound waves for how long? 49 years. You've built a great relationship with a lot of your listeners. I was actually at a home evaluation recently, and we're chatting about your retirement, and I said it's just crazy how long it's been and how far you've come, and the obviously the effect and the emotions you've had on people, in terms of people listening to you for the amount of time they have. So congratulations on everything. Congratulations on a great career. We were lucky to share, obviously, the microphone with you and have our show together. So thank you for picking that up and sharing your platform with us and
it's been my pleasure.
Doing everything.
I must admit, I've had discussions with my kids who've said, yeah, it's amazing. I didn't realize you were that old, Dad. And and then one of the kids actually said, it's amazing that anybody is that old, Dad. Thank you for hanging around. So
I thought radio was just one of those things that people don't even retire from. It's just something that, it's almost like a retirement job. No?
Well, it could. I'm actually thinking of maybe getting my real estate license, which is why I started talking about that at the beginning, because I thought maybe that's what I'm going to do in my dotage. But no, I'm going to do a little travel. Maybe your dad and I will go to New York one day.
Oh, boy.
At a conference. I put that in air quotes.
What else is on the docket for retirement? What do you see in your in the next few years?
I'm going to be doing some travel. I do a lot of directing and producing of theater, so I'm going to do a little bit of that. But I have 6 kids and 11 grandkids, and that's going to take a lot of the time, which is brilliant, because that's kind of what you work toward, right? Spending some time with family and doing those things. And yeah, I'm going to spend a lot of time getting to know the kids a little better, the grandkids a little better than I do. So that's what that's going to be all about.
That's what it's all about. You just got to watch the back. Okay. Don't strain the back. It's a lot of the grandfathers out there, think they start chucking around their grandkids and throwing them in the air and lifting them up, and it's boom, lower back. And just be careful of that.
They grow so fast, you think, well, I used to be able to pick them up. Maybe, oh, no, I can't do that anymore. Yeah, it's a bit of a shock to the system. Let's get into some other things here. Out in BC, the premier says that he's going to take aim at speculators and investors and make sure that families that are looking for homes get first dibs on things. And what they're doing is making short-term rentals in British Columbia a little more difficult to buy and work, and they're going to move toward long-term rentals. What are they doing in BC that the rest of the country is watching here, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was over 19,000 short-term rental properties in the province, and it was rapidly increasing. And I'm going to assume they have the same issues over there that we're having here in terms of the landlord tenant board. So, and I understand it, and I was in this position. I had a property. And I said, you know what, this short-term rental thing, I want to try it out. I want to see what this is all about. And it became I turned it into a little hobby, and it was fun. It was fun decorating, renovating and decorating a property and creating this small little, side business for myself, in terms of running, an Airbnb property, and people came from all over, and, you talk to them and what they were visiting it for, and what was going on. And it was awesome. It was like a small little business that I really enjoyed doing. And we saw a lot of people do it. We see tons and tons of Airbnb and vacation rentals, even in and around the Niagara area. And as they've blown up, and a lot of people have become attracted to them just for how much money they can make, combined with the fact that it's a short-term rental, and you're able to take care of your property more, and you're able to do those updates and do those things. There was a lot of attraction to going that way. And same thing in BC. They saw, and it's unbelievable to see how many short-term rental properties there are. But obviously this is having an effect on their market, and there are people who are looking for long-term solutions, families, people, and there's just none out there because they're all listed as short-term. So I understand why, and it's something that they're trying to combat it, and create more long-term solutions for families and for people. But if I were to speculate and I were to guess, it's like, we said it back in the other segment. It's like, go to the landlord tenant board, clean that up, get that fixed first, and you will not have this problem of people wanting to jump over and go do short-term rentals. That market to me is so saturated. We've seen it around, in our areas. Tons and tons of people hopped into the short-term rental market. The prices plummeted, in comparison to what you can rent out a Airbnb for last year or 2 years ago. In comparison to today, I would say it's 50% of the cost that it would be, just because there's so many options out there. The same thing will happen, but the only reason why people want to jump to the short-term rental market is because they're not confident in the landlord tenant board. And I think, like I said before, if you clean that up, you give the landlord more confidence that if they get stuck with a bad tenant who's not paying, that they can move on from them and move off from them very quickly. Then you'll see the short-term rental transition back to long-term rentals, because it's, like I said, it's less maintenance, it's less work, there's less transactions, and it's almost easier as a landlord to have a long-term tenant in comparison to a short-term tenant. So
do you get a lot of people even now coming into the business or calling you on the phone and saying, look, I want to buy a place. I'm not going to live there, but I want to just rent it out as an Airbnb, or just a B&B for that matter. Do you get a lot of people who still to this day want to do that, Phil?
Yeah, and it's more and more popular, Tim, just because of the interest rate market, right? And we've seen people's mortgages increase so fast and so rapidly for so much money. And so they're looking at other solutions in terms of being able to stay and live in their property. We've seen everything from people renting out rooms in their home to people creating garden suites, to people finishing off a basement to either rent it out as an in-law suite or rent it out as an Airbnb. So people have got super creative to be able to combat this mortgage issue in terms of the rising interest rates and the amount that their mortgages is increasing. And we're going to see it even more in the next, there's a stat out there. It's like 66% of Canadian mortgages are renewing in the next 16 months. And these new mortgage rates that they're renewing at are astronomical in comparison to what people were paying before. There's some people out there that are paying like 1.99, and when they go to renew, they're going to be renewing at like 5.85%. That's going to be a massive jump in terms of their mortgage payment and how you know, if they want to live the same lifestyle that they're living right now, it might be a result of, you know, renting out a bedroom or putting in a garden suite or renting out the basement. So what we've seen is the properties that have these in-law suite options, or the properties that have these, you know, co-living or multi-generational living space options, those have become more and more attractive to buyers in the market. And even for young buyers today, a lot of first-time home buyers will come and say, hey, we want to buy something where we can rent out the other half of the house, so it's going to help us with our mortgage payment for the first 3 to 4 years. And that's what we've seen in terms of how it's affecting our market, is people want this space that they can generate an income off of. And so it's become super popular.
I guess what I don't understand is, isn't it a bigger pain in the butt to buy a house and rent it short term? All of the stuff you have to go through, the contracts you have to sign, and background checks on people who are checking it out, and all that kind of stuff. Isn't that a bigger pain in the butt than buying it and just renting it to one family at a year's time or 2 years' time? Isn't that easier?
Yeah, but the thing is, for sure, Tim, you're 100% right. But the thing is the upside is people were getting double and triple and quadruple their monthly rent by renting it out short term. And then on top of that, if they partnered up with a property management company or an Airbnb management company, they would take care of that for you. So you were able to do this stuff. And then also, it was a hobby, right? Like, I looked at it as a hobby. I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed, you know, going out and decorating the house and making sure the property was pristine and getting the 5-star reviews and, you know, having that a part of my life. I really enjoyed that. Obviously, the long term. And then on the flip side, the property is always in amazing shape because it's getting cleaned, like deep, professionally cleaned every week or 2 times a week. So every time you show up to your house, it looks great. Whereas you know, from my experience in terms of long-term tenants, you show up to your house and you're like, oh boy, this isn't good. You know, there's going to be a lot of work here when they move out. Like, so that's the difference. There's definitely, you know, tons of pros and cons for each one. But I got out of the short-term rental market, and I rented it out long-term, just because you know, my house was vacant for a lot of the time, and the market wasn't there for short-term rentals as it once was. So I found a great tenant who you know, needed a place to go, and you know, the situation worked for her and I, and we set it up. But it's you know, I'm earning less on a per month basis than I was before from my short-term rental. Like I said, it's the exact same house, but it's guaranteed. It's every single month, and
it's less stress.
Yeah.
I want to double back to something you said a minute ago, which was that a lot of people are going to see their mortgage rates going up a lot in the next little while. All the talk and in the news has been, oh, well, the Bank of Canada is going to maybe hold the rate hold the level steady, or maybe begin to drop them. But that's not going to save people from getting an increase in their mortgage in the next little while. And that must concern you in the real estate business.
Yeah, it is concerning. You know, that's the conversations that we have every single day is a lot of people are calling us and saying, hey, my rate's going up. My mortgage payments are increasing rapidly. What are my options, and what can I do? And there's tons and tons of solutions out there. And even before you sell your property, a lot of people think their only solution to get out of their mortgage is to sell. But there's a lot of creative mortgage solutions that are out there to making sure that you don't take on this massive increased payment. So it's being able to surround yourself with the right mortgage people, and ensuring that you are aware of all the possible solutions that you have to yourself, so you don't have this massive payment shock, and you're not enduring this crazy payment shock. That's the number one thing that's affecting us right now, Tim, and we have seen it dramatically affect other areas and other sectors, right? I believe it was the CEO of RBC that had mentioned that credit card spending is already way down. It's a fraction of what it was before. And just because people are understanding, and they're trying to pay off debt and they're trying to spend less, and understanding that their payments are increasing dramatically soon. I just had you know, two of my mortgages renew, and think, you know, they're small mortgages, but the payments, you know, is still increasing hundreds of dollars, and
Yeah,
and I'm
if the
still.
government, even if the Bank of Canada, not the government, but even if the Bank of Canada does lower the rate, it's still going to go up.
It's
Right?
still going to go up.
It's
That's
still going to
right.
be higher than it was 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah, and you know, we've seen Doug Ford be on record saying that the rates cannot be what they are. Like, you know, Canadians need relief, and you know, the rates is
Yeah.
it's unbelievable what's going on and how it's affecting people.
Phil, we got to run. We're time is just about done. Next week, Stephanie Vivier will be the host here, and is your dad back next week?
Yeah, he'll be back.
Okay, so your dad will be talking to Steph, and I'm going to be listening. So I'm listening for the answers, and I love it when you fill in for your dad because it's always a great conversation. So Phil, thank you, thank your dad, and we'll be listening for the Golfi Real Estate Show next week, same time, same place, right here with the new host Steph Vivier. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Good luck.
Perfect.